So I was lost with this sense of just everything was falling apart. I was losing who I was. It was very much a psychedelic ego death, but one that life just threw at me and forced upon me.
Psychedelics are said to shift our fixed perspectives, giving us a bird's eye view of our own lives and helping to remove the lenses of cultural, religious, and social conditioning through which we are taught to see the world. They are being used therapeutically and somatically to treat depression, addiction, PTSD, and trauma, and many are using them to explore the ineffable, those unknown realms of consciousness and beyond. Join us in Adventures of the Psyche as we learn how psychedelics have transformed people's lives. Hello and welcome to Adventures of the Psyche. Today we are joined by Christopher Gunlock, who shares how closing his heart brought on a chronic illness and how the mycelial connectivity of mushrooms showed him the way to living in connection. Christopher is an educator and integration coach specializing in psychedelic integration and chronic metabolic illness through his platform Open Mind Integration. He's also the executive director of the Psychedelic Society of Minnesota, where he's working to help build community around psychedelics.
So it was about 9 years ago, I was 25, that I hit the lowest point in my life. It was catalyzed by a bad breakup. I got dumped real hard. I really liked her. And so the sense of rejection was very strong. And I responded to that by getting very depressed. And I fell into that dark place where I just push everything away. And it was compounded by the fact that I was also really just not into my job and had no prospects for the future, didn't know where I was going, didn't know who I was, and just generally kind of feeling lost and rejected by everything. And that then led to a lifestyle where just, not caring about myself or my health, and just eating a lot of bad food, staying up late and smoking weed, and just eventually my body couldn't take it anymore. I ended up with a chronic autoimmune illness, and I couldn't do normal things. I couldn't eat regular food. I couldn't sleep well or even think straight, and just couldn't get anything done. So I felt very much this was life's big ego death that it was forcing me into. And and this is kind of a funny thing for someone like me, because I spent a long time taking psychedelics. Ever since I was 17, I've just loved everything about psychedelics, the whole process of breaking parts of your identity down. As I was in this pit of despair, for quite a while, years of just like trying to figure out what's wrong with my body, I was remembering back to some of my psychedelic experiences, mushrooms especially. They showed me so much of this sense of guilt and shame that went along with pushing people out of my life, shutting off my heart. And at the same time, though, LSD in particular, I think, romanticized this attitude of being sort of a black sheep, the weird guy that doesn't really fit in, and kind of perpetuated this avoidance of dealing with that. But nonetheless, I still had some sort of awareness that this was a problem for me. This is obviously not a good thing that happens, pushing people away. And this is possibly, connected to something a little further back. I remember when I was a kid, the first time that I remember reacting this way of pushing people away. It was this moment where I was in a room with a bunch of people very close to me. It was this church that I belonged to for my whole life, and we were going to go to this amusement park, and big roller coasters, all that stuff. And at that time of my life, I hated it. I just didn't want. The idea of roller coasters scared the hell out of me. There was no way I was going to do it. And the response that I had was this, this emotional like outpouring was coming out, and I was just going to cry, and when I saw that everyone was looking at me, immediately just shut it down, close the heart off, and, to keep it safe. Um, and so, as an adult thinking back to that, I saw that maybe, hey, maybe I got to this point of my body breaking down, not because of just bad habits, but maybe because of this bigger cycle, this emotional cut, that I had done as a kid, and then perpetuated into adulthood. I spent a lot of my time, in isolation, pushing the world away. Um, as I started putting these pieces together, I saw that if I ever wanted to get out of this cycle, I would have to open that connection up. And this meant, being a part of a community, making friends, finding people who share the same interests, and really working to be open from the heart and vulnerable with people. So I was pursuing a career in integrative medicine, and I got into a psychedelic community, shared a lot of great moments with people, and and now this is my life's work. I see every new connection I make now, it's like a new way to integrate and a new way to grow as a person. And so, yeah, as I was, embracing human connection, opening up to people, it turned out I was also being better to myself, not living such an unhealthy lifestyle, and all these chronic physical issues started clearing up, and that emotional connection really seemed to be the root of it. And the big irony in all of this is mushrooms did a great job my first trip showing me that everything's connected, and that connection is life. We just need to make more connections. But thing was, there was that one very vulnerable, sensitive connection that I was avoiding. I was choosing to integrate everything but that. And so now I understand, the thing that I'm missing is that heart connection, and I have to focus on that. And that integration really is bigger than I realized.
Thank you so much for sharing, Chris. Amazing how the lessons are so elusive, until it's almost like the world has to crumble and everything has to shatter in order for us to learn them. You got the foreshadowing with your first mushroom journey, and then you had to like live it in order to like fully embody it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think, had you been able to tell your past self somehow, get them another message, that it would have made a difference? Or do you think you had to live through it in order to actually integrate this all?
Yeah. I think that is the way it had to work for me. I've always been that kind of person. I've got to see it to really believe it. I've got to really have that firsthand experience. And so I think I would have always been too naive to really do that kind of work, because it's work. It's super hard to go to those really vulnerable places inside, and it's very uncomfortable, but the payoff is immense. So if you can learn that lesson, it's worth it.
And curious, how did it feel for you in your body as you first started to reach out of that place of isolation and sickness? How did you first start to connect with others, and what did it feel like for you?
Yeah, it was hard. I had a lot of apprehensions, insecurities, it's that cycle of responding to not being accepted was just, it was always just right in my face every time I tried to embrace some sort of open human connection with people. And so in the beginning, it was awkward. Yeah, it was a lot of kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing here. But over time, when each little acceptance. Each little win gets me a little further, and I, develop more confidence, and it becomes, less of a chore, and really, I mean, very enjoyable. I mean, that's where I think most of the joy for my life comes now. This is from other people.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us, Chris.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, I love your work, and I'm so glad to be a part of it.